Braves general manager Alex Anthopoulos was on 680 The Fan radio over the weekend at Braves Fest, and he was asked, there was a clip that I saw, and he was asked a very specific question about acquiring jerks. He's like, because they made a point, the Braves really don't have any jerks. They have a bunch of likable guys that seem to love each other, enjoy each other's time. And Alex Anthopoulos said that's 100% something that he takes into consideration. He even mentioned a scenario that happened at the trade deadline where he asked a former player, like, hey, what were your experiences like? And the former player came back with negative. He said he held the player that he asked in very high regard. He came back with a negative response. He knew, Alex Anthopoulos knew that this said player they were going to trade for could help them win a World Series, but he didn't want to bring in an attitude of personality that wasn't going to vibe in the clubhouse. And this is something that I've said a million times. This is something that the Braves have had an edge over other teams, 95% of other teams, because they genuinely like playing for each other. They love each other and stuff like that. You see it with another team like the Philadelphia Phillies. You've seen their success. It's because they enjoy playing with each other and they feel confident in one another. You bring in just one little sour guy, little sour grape, that can mess everything up. And it's just another aspect that Alex Anthopoulos has mastered since taking over as general manager of the Braves.
It's like people think that, Alex Anthopoulos, discovered the wheel or something. This is the same, strategy that people take in business in all facets of life. If you're running a company, generally speaking, you want to have a good workplace environment. In sports, professional sports, college sports, they are no different. And Alex Anthopoulos has done this masterfully. He enables the coaches to do their job. He enables the training staff to do their job. Same with the front office. Same with the players. Hell, the vendors, everybody from top to bottom. He lets Terry McGurk do his job. The fact is Alex Anthopoulos has created a culture where everybody from the most important person to the least important person wants to show up to work and do their absolute best. Everybody is tugging on the same rope. And yes, it seems like, yeah, of course, why wouldn't you do that? Well, a lot of teams don't do that, not just in baseball, but in football and basketball. It seems like it's not even thought about sometimes. We're just like, let's just build the most talented roster. No, we need to build a cohesive unit, because you see it all the time in football where the guys who want to win for each other generally do. That's kind of how it works. Though the most talented roster seems like they're going to win on paper, the guys who play for one another and show up, especially in baseball, more than half the year, every single day, makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Anthopoulos even brought it up. He said, let me put myself in their shoes. He's like, what if some guy, Terry McGurk, came up to me and said, hey, this is now your assistant GM. And I look at him and I'm like, wow, this guy's a jerk. I now hate showing up to work every day. So I try to put myself in their shoes. And it's exactly how you're talking. That's the business side of things, but it's the same thing in the clubhouse. And you want to talk about baseball and people that want to be like, oh, it doesn't really matter that much, just one jerk. I'm telling you, it does. Go look at the New York Mets last year. A bunch of guys that didn't necessarily like each other. Go look at the San Diego Padres. Everyone was like, oh, the Padres just built this super team. All of a sudden, the middle of the season, they start going through a little bit of a rut, and everyone's pointing the fingers and pointing the blame game. I'm telling you, it matters. And then go look at the difference. Go look at the difference. You could say, oh, it's just because they were struggling. The Braves in 2021 were struggling. They could literally not get over 500, but everyone sat there and played for each other, knew that they were just one winning streak away from getting out of this rut, knew the division was still in their sights. And guess what? They win the division. They win the World Series. These kind of things are so vitally important over a 162 game season. And I would even go even further and say they're so vitally important in the playoffs too.
It's kind of crazy that everybody wants to, success is easy. Success is easy to deal with. When you're doing good in any facet of life, it's not hard. It's your resilience when the cards are stacked against you and how you respond. And the greatest teams always respond in kind. No matter how many times they get knocked down, they get back up. The Braves are the perfect example of that, and it's because of the job Alex Anthopoulos has done. The kinds of characters he's brought in that mesh. It's building a roster is one of the hardest things to do in any industry at all, building a championship roster. And the fact that Alex Anthopoulos has done so and made them perennial contenders for as long as he has, it doesn't get talked about enough. I know we talk about the Anthopoulos statue. I'm telling you, like, this isn't a joke anymore. Where, like, he wins another World Series, he's going to get a statue. He deserves one at least.
Yeah, I mean, he's got quite a long time now that he signed an extension through 2031 to win not just one World Series, multiple World Series. And we've talked about in baseball. I mean, go look at the Kansas City Chiefs. A couple weeks, 4 or 5 weeks ago, they were losing to the Raiders on Christmas Day, getting absolutely embarrassed in their home building, and everyone had already written them off. And they're just a cohesive unit, like you said. They get over the failure, and boom, no one doubted them. No one in that locker room after that game doubted that they could get to the Super Bowl. Andy Reid talked about it, and I'm sure he'll talk about it several times over the last over these next 2 weeks going up to the Super Bowl, how that was a good thing for him. It was a wake-up call. And it really is an underrated, undervalued aspect of being a general manager. And it's just like, it seems like when you're just talking about Alex Anthopoulos checking boxes of what he's great at, this is just another thing that it's just checked. Like, he's great at everything. He's great at everything.
Yeah, and Braves fans can get, if you're an Atlanta sports fan, just how terrible the other side of the fence can be. Look no further than the Atlanta Hawks. Feels like everybody hates to go to work for the Atlanta Hawks, and it shows.
Every single player. Travis Slank's like, I want out. Nate McMillan's like begging them to fire him. He's like, please fire me. I mean, it really
just goes to show.
There's enough talent on that Atlanta Hawks team. We've seen it to get, at least to the first or second round of the playoffs and be a 5 or a 6 seed. But guess what? Everyone hates each other. I mean, you saw pointing the blame between John Collins and Trae Young. We've heard rumors about Trae Young not being that liked, hard to coach. Nate McMillan not wanting to show up to work. Travis Slank deciding to step down. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you go from the Eastern Conference Finals, and in a short period with very little attrition to your roster, you're 8 games under 500. And it's a perfect example of the other end of the spectrum.
It's crazy. You don't have to look very far. All you got to do is look about 20 minutes south to Atlanta. It's pathetic, really, because like you said, the Hawks are talented, but it just goes to show where it starts. It doesn't start at Trae Young. It starts at the very top with the wrestlers. It starts with Terry McGurk and Liberty Media to Alex Anthopoulos to the rest of the staff, to the training staff, to the coaching staff, to the roster. You've got a bad apple at the very top of the Hawks organization, and it's just it's a trickle-down effect, and you're seeing it. It's just a terribly run organization. I say it very often. Thank goodness for the Atlanta Braves, or us Atlanta sports fans outside of the Georgia Bulldogs would be absolutely miserable.
Well, speaking of those Georgia Bulldogs, we are going to talk about a Georgia Bulldog entering the NFL draft. Ladd McConkey at the first day of the Reese Senior Bowl really showed out. Where could he go in the draft?